Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there, welcome back.
Okay, you guys, so, this one was going to be several different topics, but I really wanted to focus on kind of like a little bit more of a historical perspective and putting things together. As we see, we have reports of a major explosion in Donetsk, and I guess this again is an area that all eyes are on. The breakaway Donetsk and Lugansk republics order evacuation. Civilians must flee from the rebel-held Ukrainian regions to Russia, their heads say. Flee to Russia. The leaders of self-proclaimed Donetsk and Lugansk People's Republics told civilians on Friday evacuate to Russia to avoid getting caught in a crossfire in case the Ukraine starts an attack. Yeah, this is never ending, really. Warfare and the Kali Yuga go hand in hand.
They do. They just always work together because certain beings know how to handle things in this dark Kali Yuga, and this is what they do. So it's nothing new to them.
No, this is how they control. As we see, Russia responds to U.S. CONS piracy theories as questionable chemical attack video already emerges in response to U.S. and NATO claims that Russia isn't withdrawing troops from areas around Ukraine. The Kremlin said on Thursday that troop pullbacks take time and dismissed the Western skepticism as unfounded accusations. It's clear the grouping for the exercises was built up over many weeks and is, of course, impossible to withdraw in a single day. They just can't take off and fly away. It takes time. As always, unfounded accusations. So is it? That's the big question mark, because what people are talking about are ever-increasing numbers. And now we keep hearing 190,000 troops, which is, just constantly going upwards.
It is, and it's we're just keeping an eye on it, and these things are not changing. It's just definitely escalating constantly.
So there was a car that exploded, as we see the headlines over out of Sputnik. Powerful explosion rips through Donetsk. And civilian defense siren sounding. That's a horrible sound. That's just one of those sounds you don't want to hear. To order the evacuation, there's videos that we'll give you guys links to, as always. There was a car that exploded. Was it a car bomb? It's hard to say at this time. Was that just simply to create fear? That very well could be. As we said, a lot of people don't realize that loosh is a real thing, and life feeds off of life, sometimes in a parasitic way.
Right, and in an etheric way. It's just because we can't see it doesn't mean it's not there.
But if we look to the history, as we're going to take a peek, you're going to see that there's always been war. And we have stocks tumbling to session lows after Russian media reports large explosion near a government building in Donetsk, and that's the car that exploded. So, it didn't really cause any major damage besides one car that's no longer with us. And Zeke still does have his cough there. He was at the vet yesterday, and he's got some new meds to take, as well as a treasure trove of things that are natural that are helping. So Matthew 24, because I see so many people quoting Matthew 24, and in pretty big channels out there that cover a variety of different topics. And you see Matthew 24 saying, "For many will come in my name, claiming, I am the Christ, and will deceive many." But here is the part that people are focusing on. "You will hear of wars and rumors of wars, but see to it that you are not alarmed. These things must happen, but the end is still to come. Nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes in various places." And, there have been people that have come and said that they were the second coming of Christ. We could do a video on that too. That might be interesting in so many ways. But how about those wars and rumors of wars? And, nation rising against nation, kingdom against kingdom, famines and earthquakes. Well, it's just part of Kali Yuga life. Here's a listing of wars before 1000 BC. This is before 1000 BC. And as you can see, you're going to notice you're going to have to really look hard to find maybe 20 years of peace anywhere, because these are just major wars that we know of. And as you could see, there really isn't any peace. It's constant warfare. Now, this is just looking at this time frame, and you could see there's really not any gaps in there, guys. So with that statement, which was made well after this time, applied to the time preceding that statement, absolutely. Look at that. Where's the peace? Okay. And let's go on from 1 to 999 now. As in reality, most of what we have of the biblical quotes as far as getting full copies of New Testament Gospels and the like, you're looking about 300 to 400 years minimum after Yeshua walked the earth. So again, they typically left a lot up to the scribes. And as we had said before, in the Gospel of John, for instance, there's hundreds. I've actually seen people say there's thousands of edits in just the oldest Gospel of John, which again is something that is dated between 3 and 400 AD, 400 AD. When did the wars, so guys, we're going through, and then we go from 1000 to 1999. Okay, so where's peace? Where's peace? You will hear of wars and rumors of wars. Yeah, the wars always are. They never stop. So, that statement is really, truly a very, very, very big blanket statement. That's a massive blanket statement that could cover any time period on the globe. As we're looking, and we're still trying to find, where's the peace, guys? It never stops. 1400 to 1499. It applies in every single age that we're looking at here. When wouldn't it apply? And here we're taking a look at wars since 1900. Hello. Yeah. That's just that's the most blanket statement you can make in effect. It's not specific. It covers every single time period. And here's our famines. And we'll go back to 2200 BC. So you can see there's been major famine after major famine after major famine after major famine after major famine. Again, the statement applies any time period. Pick a time period. You're going to find a famine in somebody's life somewhere. So, yeah, you'll hear of wars and rumors of wars. You'll see famines. And you have earthquakes in diverse places. Yeah. Birds fly. Fish swim. It just is. And then let's look at quakes. Here you go. There's tons of times with major quakes all over the globe. And of course, we know history is written by the victors. And there is most definitely something called revisionist history. History on the fly, constant editing, constant redacting. And again, can you guys get the picture? Look at all these quakes. Look at these quakes. And we passed one back up there in Arkansas, I noticed. Yep. Look at these quakes. Okay, so when doesn't that apply? When we look at the map of the globe, and this is the Ukraine that we're looking at right now, as you can see it right here, the maps always are changing. And this is the Donbass area that we're talking about. This is on the border with Russia, right above the Azov Sea. Here you see Crimea. And again, this is all that area of contention. Let's go back to the mid-11th century, and what do we see? Well, we see the Byzantine Empire, Constantinople, Istanbul now. As you see the Mediterranean here, and we see Greece, the Greek Isles, and then you could go through here to get to the Black Sea. And this is what is modern-day Turkey, but here at this time period was the Byzantine Empire, and later on it becomes the Ottoman Empire. But we see Kiev and Rus. There's Kiev, capital of the Ukraine. And this is one people. Kievan Rus. At this period in time, they were one people, Kievan Rus. And this is again mid-11th century. And the rulers of the Kievan Rus, and we see Vladimir I, extremely warlike ruler of Kiev, invited missionaries from Judaism, Islam, and Christianity to offer reasons for conversion, married the Byzantine emperor's sister, and brought Christianity and Greco-Roman civilization to Russia. Again, always a tool. Religion is used as a tool and an excuse. And religion is different than spirituality. Spirituality is when we start to make the spiritual side of things part of our everyday existence. And that's not dependent on anybody's dogmas. Dogmas divide. You don't need dogmas. Source is already within you. God is already inside of you. You just have to realize that and cultivate that. And if God is love, then obviously you want to cultivate the loving side, ultimately. And here we see the expansion of Russia from 1500 to 1800. And there's Azov, and we see the Black Sea, the Sea of Azov. We see Crimea. This was all under Russian control back in 1796. But, there's whole empires, like Poland one time was a very large empire. Tiny little Lithuania was a big empire at one point in time, and then they're just basically almost wiped off the map. The map is constantly changing because it serves a purpose. And we've talked about this. 1871, American General Albert Pike, who has been enticed into the group that starts with an I and ends with an I, and you see there, Illuminated Ones, by Giuseppe Mazzini, completes his military blueprint for 3 world wars and various revolutions throughout the world, culminating into moving into this great conspiracy into its final stage. Well, from what I've read, it's more like he was kind of doing a little bit of an expose. Mazzini did bring him into the group. He was actually a Confederate general, and actually some of his statues were pulled down recently. One of the things that he talked about was, again, Israel would have to be brought back into existence in order to create tension, the reason for war in the first place. When we talk about the powerful families that these people work through, and we could probably go all the way back to the Roman Senate and find some lineages that are still intact, all the way back to the Roman Senate. Kid you not, but we think about the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers, and we think about the DuPonts, and we think about, the Kennedy family and the Onassis family. And we could go on and on with these different families that control so much of the real, the people that we see on the stage, such as the leader of Canada, France, and other countries that really, I don't think they are capable of balancing their own personal books, maybe. And yet they're given to be making these major decisions. No. They're just, again, actors. The good-looking actors go to Hollywood, as we know, and the ugly ones come to D.C. or wherever that governance might be.
Actors, nonetheless. I mean, they're all actors, and they have a part to play, and they're going to play it very well. They're also going to make sure that they're taken care of. They're going to make sure that we are in a place to be controlled. So this is why we have to take care of ourselves and step up to the plate and understand that everything that we've been given, all the information that we've been given since we were children, going off to these studies, these universities, this is all being taught to us so that we can run their property, so we can do the work for them. Nothing has changed since the I better not even say the A word, I'm not even going to say the Anunnaki word. Nothing has changed.
The Anunnaki were a collection of deities in Sumeria and Arcadia. They are just myths and legends. Nothing to look at here. We will put a wiki stamp on it for you.
Yes, we got at least one wiki stamp. I aim to do that every time.
Yes. So again, they don't even view themselves as being really part of the world that we live in. They view themselves as being above everything. It's pretty obvious they think that they're above the law. So they could create situations that would create massive sympathies for certain people that have gone through massive tragedies in order to create what they really want, which is the reason for another tragedy to come along later. And, it was the Balfour Declaration that was leading the way, paving the way for the coming back into existence of Israel that had been, basically wiped off the map since 70 AD when the Romans sacked Jerusalem and destroyed the temple. And we had the diaspora where people just were basically scattered everywhere. This is a never-ending cycle. So again, we see there's a ROTHS child behind the scenes here, bringing this all about. Lord, L-O-R-D. There's that L-O-R-D word, and it's a generic term signifying somebody in power.
Where do we see this other word, Lord, all over the place? You don't have to look much further than in any motel room drawer.
No, absolutely. Well, again, it's right there, right? It's in the BIBLE, which again, everybody that becomes the president of this country has to put their hand on it, has to swear by it. And not only that, but we see them especially when you see them on the right, they're always quoting it. And you see on the left, there's this, again, it's a dichotomy. It's creating opposition, intended opposition, because you work through the opposing forces to get your desired results achieved. And so here we're looking at the extent of the promised land, according to Numbers 34, the land occupied by Reuben, Gad, and Manasseh. And so, this is the land that was supposedly promised to the Israelites by, God. Which, because again, you have, if you really look at it, you have the Yahwist texts that call God Yahweh. And then you have the Elohist texts, and El is actually a Canaanite storm god. And it's also kind of a generic term for Lord, which we see. But when we go back farther to the Sumerian texts, which predate anything biblical by thousands and thousands of years, you see a different picture. You see these Sumerian deities as actual beings, powerful beings that have technology that humans don't, but were openly amongst humans at some periods of time. And then they left, and they gave kingship to humanity. Their appointed kings, from their bloodlines, that were left here because they couldn't stay here anymore because humanity was going from 4D down into 3D. So they used other 3D beings to directly control humanity. Again, that's kingship given from on high. And think about it as far as, what's on high from, not on earth. Those that would apparently come from the sky and go from the sky. Or could just even perhaps manifest in and manifest out of third density, because they're so far advanced technologically and understanding just how the universe works. So here we have, yet again, another war and another invasion and another land that had people that were living there for a long period of time. And I've seen numerous channels do really good work on uncovering the DNA aspects of who were the Canaanites. Well, they were there a very, very long time. They were there for thousands of years before. And it's interesting, too, because, apparently some of the Israelites were there prior to what we think as well. So again, religion gets used as an excuse for conquering. It's just that simple. We have the one true God. Well, God promised us this, so you got to, hit the road or be exterminated. This is what's going on now. It's always been. Religion is one of the biggest tools. And all we got to do is look at the Tower of Babel, and it says it clearly again. And, the original translation here, it uses the word Elohim, powerful ones, the mighty ones. The Elohim came down to see the city and the tower the people were building, and they said, if as one people speaking the same language they begun to do this, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. Come, let us go down there, confuse their language so they won't understand each other. So the Elohim scattered them all over the earth, and they stopped building the city, and that's why it was called Babel. Why would you have if God is love, why would he want them not getting along and being constructive? Why would he need to scatter them? Again, this is when we start to look at things and we realize mom and dad are the Easter Bunny, mom and dad are Santa Claus. Santa Claus is a nice little idea, and there's the spirit of giving and the spirit of Christmas that we should cultivate, that spirit of love and compassion. But it's not to be taken literally as far as the story we've been given, because again, the victors give us the story in the first place. When we're looking at the mainstream narrative, and you could just go and they'll try to explain away all the things that they can, and then they get to the one spot where things just won't make sense. Well, how can you know what God is thinking? Is that not the biggest cop-out ever written?
I know. It's just so much information here, and it's not like I want to go after anyone's religion or belief system, because it can help people. It can absolutely direct people to the right intention. But at some time and point, you have to realize that this is also being used to control and to harm.
And to justify atrocities.
Yes.
Absolutely. Because we could go to the Quran and suffer not an infidel to live. And, you could be beheaded for not obeying, quote unquote, God's laws. And people are all the time stoned and beheaded. This is not what we find on fifth density. Fifth density, there's an understanding that sources within, everybody has their unique path. One size doesn't fit all. You don't have to conform. Conformity is of the controllers. So anything that's demanding conformity, as we've seen, Simon says, put them on. Simon says, okay, you could have them off. We're talking about facial coverings there. Well, there's facial coverings for women, coming out of Islam as well. Simon says, do this. Humans are meant to be free. Humans are meant to follow their own paths. And we see, when you go into the Bible, there's a lot of people that don't want to look at the Old Testament because it's pretty damn dark. And they've been trying to justify the atrocities such as the condoning of slavery forever. And eventually they'll again fall back to, well, it's not up to us, to judge God. God judges us. Again, the controllers, that's the perfect tool. So how can you judge the controllers? We might as well believe the mainstream media. Might as well go back to believing CNN, Fox TV, MSNBC. But, most of you guys can't do that anymore because you could just see right through and see it's just a bunch of bunk used to control us and keep us fighting each other and to justify warfare, which there isn't any justification for the warfare. And we see that with the defense budget, which is purely offensive. As the U.S., when was the last time the U.S. was invaded? How many wars has the U.S. been in since 1900? How many of you, remember things like, the Mexican-American War, the Spanish-American War, all these other, wars that went on even prior to World War I and World War II. And then we see here, now go and attack the Amalekites and devote to destruction all that belongs to them. Do not spare them, but put to death men, women, children, and infants, oxen and sheep, camels and donkeys. So Saul summoned the troops and numbered them at Telam, 200,000 foot soldiers and 10,000 men of Judah. If those numbers are accurate, again, the population doesn't make sense. And we've talked about from the Vedic books getting a number of dead in one battle at 1.7 billion. Even by today's standards, that's kind of unthinkable. What type of war could that possibly have been? And what type of being? Is this turn the other cheek? This is not what Yeshua was talking about. Somebody wants your cloak, give them your tunic too. Somebody slaps you on one cheek, turn the other cheek. This is death and destruction. This is the beings that we know as the Anunnaki and the Gigi that are here still ruling for them over the human lineages that we've talked about. That kingship has been given down from, well, not very high, lower 4th D.
Yeah, I think that's more appropriate.
Yeah. No, we're not talking about any sort of heavenly realm. Exactly the opposite, because lower fourth D is the lower astral realm, is the realm of the hells that people see and have described through nightmares and meditations. Difficult to understand how heavy the fighting has been in the Ukraine today until you compare it to the rest of the year, and you could see these are ceasefire violations. All of a sudden, it is starting to go on, but it's very, very confusing. But that, again, is part of the whole program. Shelling resumed in eastern Ukraine as they're bracing for conflict. And again, as we said, now they say about 190,000 Russian troops in the area. But we don't know if we could trust that. But we do constantly see movement. 3 companies of T-80 tanks rolling on out. It's been non-stop. There's obviously a lot of hardware going on. There's disinformation campaigns everywhere to such a degree that it's very hard to straighten these things out. And we see Putin taking part in nuclear war drills himself. Yep, he is. He's right there off the back of the bear and leading the way. And so, again, so much is for Lush. Belarus says it could host super nuclear weapons for Russia if it feels threatened by the West. Don't worry, you could put them in our backyard. Oh, thanks, you're such a good friend.
Yeah, I mean, they're getting along. That's nice.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing, too. Just look at the way past presidents get along. Look at what looks to be real affection in some photos between, say, Michelle Obama and, the Bush pappies there. There looks to be some serious affection as they laugh and they joke, and you could put Obama in the mix and the Clintons in the mix. They understand. They're part of a club. They understand that, hey, first thing you got to do as a politician is take acting lessons.
Right. And, they don't mind all the stuff that they're doing to us. For them, it's what they're supposed to do. For them, it's very, very normal, and they have to keep some kind of a cover over things. And it's almost like they're doing this loosh thing now. It's like they ratchet everything up to get people just a little more afraid, a little more scared, and then they'll kind of send it on this plateau for a few days, and then they start pulling out things using vocabulary words like nuclear war and stuff like that, and then they'll plateau for a few days. But yeah, I mean, this is all to get us riled up, and just, it's not right. We have to take care of ourselves and look after ourselves.
Absolutely. And so we see Ukraine to launch military operation via breakaway Lugansk Republic, so says militia leader. And as we have been saying, they're evacuating citizens as we see the shelling intensify. So nothing is really ratcheting downwards. And we see U.S. Air Force Global Hawk going over reconnaissance. It just is circling the perimeter. I mean, look at that. Circling the perimeter, just waiting for an accident to happen, is really what they do. I mean, we could look at all the other things that happen, the sinking of Lusitania, for instance. Real-time network data shows significant disruption to internet connectivity. This is to be expected as well, and things might even go dark. And then you got to ask, okay, India has a destroyer, just test fires a supersonic weapon. Yeah. The BrahMos cruise missile was designed jointly with Russia. Yeah, so now India is got this technology, the supersonic technology that we've been hearing about, along with China and Russia. Very interesting, to say the least. Now, a little bit more detailed is the Hopi prophecy. And the Hopi prophecy is much more specific than what we were looking at with Matthew. And Zeke's going to have a little coughing fit again, because it does talk about the ancient countries that first had light. The Hopis say on Purification Day, a red army will cover the earth like giant ants. This is thought to mean at a certain point, Russia, China, and their allies will rout the U.S. and our allies. And it's interesting, though, it does say the ancient ones, the ancient people that first had the light are the ones that are going to attack the U.S. And they do talk about what looks to be missiles and everything. This is it. World War III will be started by the people who first received the light. China, Palestine, India, and Africa. When the war comes, the United States will be destroyed by gourds of ashes, which will fall to the ground, boiling the rivers and burning the earth, where no grass will grow for many years, causing a disease that no medicine can cure. And so, people assume that it has to be the Nuke word, but we've also heard that the galactics will not allow a full-scale Nuke conflagration, and there's been cases of UFOs that have passed over nuclear sites and that have deactivated them. Again, it's a question of free will, and they're allowed to do some things where, if it's going to be massive destruction to other beings on other densities that are not directly involved, they're able to step in. And when you're talking nuclear weapons, you're talking about weapons that tear holes in space-time. So again, we have the power to change timelines, and the individual can jump on a new timeline. I have no doubts about that. The individual can also ascend at any time if one is dedicated enough to raising their vibration up. And again, part of that might be just simply stepping out of this matrix. Many people are unplugging, and that's a good thing. Unplugging is really good. As we've been unplugging more ourselves. We unplug the router every night. We put the cell phones, when not in use, in Faraday cages, things like that. Because again, the wireless Wi-Fi networks are information highways, and they're also highways for entities to travel through. As we know, yes, there are demons, and yes, there are angels, and yes, there are extraterrestrials, and there's interdimensionals. There's all of the above. And this reality that we see, part of it is created by our expectations, and they understand that. So they want us to carry out the plot that they've laid out for us. So I want to thank you guys for your support at Patreon, also at Ko-Fi. We couldn't do it without you. Do check out Medicinal Foods, great products for detoxing, boosting your immune system. Make sure to use coupon code EEA and get a discount. It does support the channel. And do check out Evolutionary Energy Arts if you want to make an appointment with us. It's evolutionaryenergyarts@gmail.com or EEARTS@protonmail.com. As always, much love, God bless, and namaste.